We're moving on to phylum Arthropoda, as it's spelled in your laboratory manual. And if you take a look at the pictures up here, we have basically 3 main groups, but we're going to discuss it as 3 main groups. Some of them are broken down into subclasses. You have class Arachnida, which are your fleas, your ticks, your spiders, and your scorpions. And then you have class Insecta, other than microorganisms on the planet. The class Insecta is one of the largest classes, which makes phylum Arthropoda the largest, has the largest number of organisms than any other phylum, except for microorganisms, which is obviously in the millions and billions and trillions. And then of course we have crustaceans. And then we have several other classes that include the horseshoe crab. We don't usually divide the classes up as much down to the smaller 3 sections, but I would like to mention that the class Merostomata is our horseshoe crabs, and this is one of the oldest organisms related to us that are on the planet. And that is the horseshoe crab. And then of course you have millipede and centipede. And sometimes these are thrown under the class Insecta, but they actually do have their own class. All right, so let's take a look at arthropods. Arthropods, 3 tissue types, coelomate. They are segmented. They have segments in the body. There are different types of segmentation. They might be insects, which are 3 body parts, your head, your thorax, and your abdomen. Or they could be segments that look very similar to earthworm segments. And those are actually have different legs or bristles attached to each of those separate segments for moving. Examples, centipede and millipede. And so when we look at segmentation, it's not all like the millipede and centipede and like what the earthworm has, which is one of the things that relates them is segmentation, Annelida and arthropod. It can be, again, head, thorax, or head, thorax, and abdomen, like insects, right? So, taking a look at some representative samples. On arthropods, one of the things we want to note, in addition to jointed appendages or different body types, is that you have your winged groups. Wings count as segments, a separate part attached to a segment. But wings are found in phylum Arthropoda. Winged insects found in phylum Arthropoda. There's molting. There's molting here. So we have molting in phylum Arthropoda, and we also see molting in one other group, which is in the phylum Nematoda. And so then we also have an exoskeleton of sorts. Everything's crunchy in the phylum Mollusca. In the phylum Arthropoda. Everything's crunchy. So you have the exoskeleton that's very characteristic of the arthropods. All right, so let's just take a look at some of the characteristic samples. Of course, we have moths and butterflies. All right, the difference between a cocoon and a chrysalis. A moth, this is the atlas moth. These are true to size. These are actual samples. And this is the morpho butterfly. These are beautiful. They're actually brown on one side and neon blue on the other. You can actually see these in the garden down at the Natural History Museum over by the Phillips Center, if you go in the butterfly garden here in Gainesville. And they're beautiful. Okay, so they're part of the class Insecta, and then you have your more traditional, sort of long-winged butterfly here. Then you have beetles. This is a scorpion. Everybody likes to see the scorpions, so let me see if I can turn the tail. Okay, all right. And then, of course, crayfish. All right, everybody knows what a crayfish looks like, all right? This is an isopod, and it's huge, right? It has antenna. It has the plates. And then on the underneath section, you've got segmentation, and all of these legs, all of this body, all of these flaps are either for reproduction or moving food towards the mouth. So basic body types, everything we've been looking at, one of the things we have to consider is form versus function. That means based on the form of the animal, what are they capable of doing? What does it look like? How does it look like they feed themselves? How does it look like they reproduce? What are they using to do that? So form fits function, almost everything you see. So that's a type of isopod. And barnacles, and this is a huge horseshoe crab exoskeleton. You can see on the inside where the soft body parts would fit. These are also exploited for economic reasons, depending on what part of the world they're from. For the blood, their blood is actually supposed to be very antibacterial, very antiviral. So they're exploited and killed in mass numbers for this. You know, usually in third world countries or areas where, you know, they're trying to make a living. And almost can't blame people, it happens. Tarantula. And this is looks like it might be, it's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like it might be a rose-legged tarantula.
That's good.
Okay. And also about the, you're going to have to know several characteristics. So let me just mention a couple of things on the spiders. What's characteristic of the spiders is the mouth, which has what are called chelicerae, or chelicerata, plural. And that means that it's sort of, it's mandibles that open up and come together and pinch. So that chelicerate sort of box-like mouth that opens and closes, you probably see sci-fi horror movies trying to use that, where the mouths open and then they close, and it's very scary because the mouth all of a sudden goes to 5 times bigger than it actually is. So that kind of thing, if you were an actual small, tiny little insect about to get bitten or eaten or whatever it's going to do to you, would be very scary. So the mouths in some of the insects have what are called chelicerae. Okay, so exoskeleton, protostome development, 3 tissue types, bilateral symmetry. They have body jointed appendages, segmentation, and they molt. That's how an exoskeleton grows. For the organism to grow to the size it's going to be at a standard size as an adult, it will, the outer exoskeleton will soften, come off, and the underneath exoskeleton will still be soft, and it will harden at a larger size, and then they'll have their new body covering, so they have to molt. The other group that does that is Nematoda. Okay, I'm going to move on to phylum Echinodermata.